makes me happy? That's a good question.
What makes me happy? Achieving my goals makes me happy.
What makes me happy? Every day.
Serving people and doing great things for people. Yes.
Cause I'm never tired of romping. It's something with you at the Savoy of joy. A perfect holiday. Savoy will dance the night away. Savoy, where I would love to stay.
Good afternoon and happy International Day of Happiness. My name is Ibrahim Nasser, I'm the Director of the Outreach Division in the Department of Public Information. And today's event is a joint initiative of the United Nations Academic Impact, which is an initiative of the Department of Public Information and the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and the permanent mission of Bhutan to the United Nations. We thank Ambassador Latu Wangchuk for his kind support and participation in today's event. We would also like to acknowledge the support and cooperation extended by members of civil society, especially Margot Lazaro of the Global Family, an NGO associated with DBI. Thank you. The theme of this afternoon's conversation, happiness and well-being, essential for a sustainable future, has its origin in the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 66/281, which established the International Day of Happiness. A few words about today's format. This is designed as a conversation, and we expect you to actively participate in it, so please do so. To make the conversation really interactive, we have requested our panel members to keep their introductory remarks to under 5 minutes, and I ask you to help them stay under 5 minutes. Before we turn to our panel members, I would like to invite His Excellency Ambassador Wangchuk for his welcoming remarks. Ambassador.
Thank you. Honorable Under-Secretary General, Excellencies, distinguished members of the panel, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. I welcome you all to this very important event. I offer my greetings to the members of the panel who will momentarily embark on a conversation on happiness and well-being, essential for a sustainable development. The United Nations General Assembly, through its Resolution 66/281, proclaimed the 20th of March as the International Day of Happiness. This is important for the world, for it allows us to reflect on the meaning and purpose of life. For far too long, we have neglected this, and it is beginning to impact our lives and that of our planet in a big way. Incidentally, Bhutan has declared March 20 as the National Day. We live in the 21st century, where the human intelligence and ingenuity has reached an unimaginable height. Yet, there is no international peace and security. Many parts of our world are stricken with wars, conflict, terrorism, and so on. Poverty, hunger, diseases continue unabated. In the name of security and balance of power, we divert our scarce resources to war machines and war preparedness. In the name of economic development, we plunder our delicate and precious planet. In the name of trade and commerce, we compromise all forms of ethics. Indeed, we are selfish, blinded by greed. The great Mahatma Gandhi once said, Our world has enough for everyone's need, but not everyone's greed. It is obvious that we have followed a wrong path in our pursuit of well-being and happiness. Wouldn't it make a better sense to divert those scarce resources to invest in education, education that is wholesome, physical well-being, mental well-being, and spiritual well-being? No one can disagree that the most precious and indeed the ultimate goal of humanity is well-being and happiness. If it is so, why aren't we working towards it? Our world cannot function anymore under the business as usual. Now is the time to look at our world, our planet, and ourselves with a renewed sense of responsibility and self-discipline. We have been irrational and irresponsible long enough. Now is the time to refocus and understand the meaning and purpose of life. Now is the time to redirect our efforts to serving humanity. Now is the time to understand us and salvage ourselves. Now is the time to realize that our world is interconnected. One cannot pretend to be happy if there is disharmony in one's family. Similarly, we cannot be at peace if our neighbors are in turmoil. Likewise, we cannot expect to have international peace and security if some pockets of our world are stricken with wars, conflicts, poverty, and injustices. We are all interconnected, and therefore we all must take responsibility. Let us all work for peace, security, harmony, and sustainable development, which are preconditions to achieving the ultimate goal of our collective happiness. Tashin Derek, and thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Walichon. Now, without further ado, we will turn to our panel, distinguished panel members, to introduce the theme of today's conversation. We're most delighted to welcome Mr. Peter Lansing-Tiefenthal, the Undersecretary General for Communications and Public Information of the Department of Public Information. Mr. Lansing-Tiefenthal, Peter. Yep.
Thank you so much, Maha. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. My colleagues in preparing this meeting and my remarks suggested a very serious look at the topic of happiness, and so in that sense I will not be a match to the happiness that our musicians have just shared with us. So I hope you'll understand. First and foremost, I should send kind regards from the Deputy Secretary General Jan Eliassen, who's asked me to represent him here today, and to share his good wishes for our gathering today. I would like to thank the Kingdom of Bhutan for having been the creator of this idea of designating a day dedicated to celebrating happiness. I myself fondly remember several visits flying in across the Himalayas and then through the valleys down to the city of Paro, touching down in Bhutan, and that's why it's not a surprise that the concept of happiness would have found its creator in the Kingdom of Bhutan. Joining us today, as was mentioned before, is Ambassador Wangchuk, permanent representative of Bhutan, and I would like to also personally thank you for the partnership that you've shown with the United Nations Academic Impact Program, particularly the one run by the Department of Public Information. So thank you so much, sir. Last year, when the United Nations General Assembly decided to declare March 20th as the International Day of Happiness, a lot of people raised eyebrows. Some suggested that happiness was a state of mind and far too abstract a concept. Others asked, how could there be a common template for measuring happiness? Happiness, often defined and sometimes easier defined, but what does not constitute happiness. Like happiness is not when you're hungry, when you are sick, when you're unable to support your families. Happiness is not when you are fleeing a war or when your human rights are being violated. For many people, that represents their everyday reality. Some must face it alone, others try to find support and solace through human solidarity, and often with the help of the United Nations. While there is no way we can fully address the emotional needs of individuals, there is growing consensus on the possibility of meaningful joint action to achieve our basic human needs, such as fighting poverty, promoting health and well-being, safeguarding human rights, and protecting the environment. Taken together, they constitute a sort of global map of human happiness. And the United Nations was created for that purpose, to build such a human happiness map. These goals are best summarized already in the Charter of the United Nations: to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, to maintain justice, and to promote better standards of life in larger freedom. Of course, and there are those who would like to define human development and happiness in purely materialistic terms. The United Nations, however, was among the first ones to develop a more holistic approach of development along three main criteria: longevity, knowledge, and a decent standard of living. Another important initiative by the Secretary General is the one on the Millennium Development Goals that tries to pursue the similar objectives. In the year 2000, as you know, the Millennium Summit here in New York, world leaders committed themselves to work towards 8 main development goals, ranging from halving extreme poverty to halting the spread of HIV/AIDS and providing universal primary education, all by the target date of 2015. These goals are clearly measurable and easy to understand, and they are directly related to happiness and to the happiness of millions of people. After all, happiness is best understood in the context of human well-being and sustainability. Together they define gross global happiness, the Secretary General said. Such a paradigm shift will be possible only when we are able to join our hearts and minds, and all of us commit ourselves to fulfilling the common goals of a better tomorrow. Rabindranath Tagore, one of the greatest poets, wrote about this vision most beautifully when he said, when he wrote, "I slept and I dreamed that life was joy. I awoke and I saw that life was service. I acted and behold, service was joy." Now that is a perfect happiness project, and it deserves the world's complete support. Tashi Devik, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. That was 5 minutes on the dot.
Thank you.
We now turn to someone who has been a driving force behind the General Assembly Resolution 66/281 on the International Day of Happiness, His Excellency Ambassador Hamid al-Bayati, the Permanent Representative of Iraq to the United Nations. Ambassador,
thank you, Maher. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and the Secretary General. It's a pleasure and honor to be among you to talk about the International Day of Happiness. Bhutan had the initiative of having a resolution in 2011 about world happiness, and in March last year, he and a team of celebrities met the President of the General Assembly, Nasser al-Nasser, the former president, and Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. And we thought we should have a day designated by the UN for international happiness. And after deliberation with the Office of the President of the General Assembly and Ambassador Judy helped us to select the 20th of March because the length of day and night is equal, so it's reflect the balance of nature. And 20th of March, as you know, is the beginning of spring. Many countries in the world on 21st of March celebrate Nowruz. 13 countries celebrated Nowruz a couple of days ago in the General Assembly. And it's the beginning of spring. Nations used to celebrate that day because it's the end of winter and beginning of the harvest season where they could have water, flowers, blossoms, etc., etc. So the idea of the happiness is worldwide, and I have a friend of mine who published this book about happiness in Africa. I will encourage you to go and Google it and read about it. This was on the margin of the World Cup in 2009 when this photographer went to many African countries to take pictures of people smiling to show the world that Africa, although it's the poorest continent in the world, it could be the happiest. Because many people don't understand what happiness is. Many people don't know how to have happiness. And the majority of people don't have real and truly happiness. Most of the people believe happiness that you have a big salary, a good car, a big house, but we have millionaires and billionaires and celebrities who take a lot of drugs, die because of overdose, and so many things happen. While you see a farmer with a poor family and they live happily in this life. Happiness is always come within. And you could be the happiest person in the worst circumstances. And history shows that prophets and messengers were tortured, were opposed, were rejected by their people, but they were happy because they were sacrificing their lives for others. And the happiest people, I believe, that those who live for others, not for themselves. This book was given to Nelson Mandela, and Nelson Mandela was in prison for a long time. He was the longest prisoner, but he became a symbol for freedom in the world. Myself, I was a prisoner and tortured in Iraq by the former dictatorial regime. But you don't believe that inside myself I was smiling while I was tortured. I was laughing because I couldn't laugh loudly. I would be killed and saying, look at these people who are torturing me. They are not humans. They are like animals, and I think they are not it. I am happy because I was tortured for a good cause. I was struggling against the most brutal dictatorship in the world, and my hero was my mother. Since we have more ladies today, it's a good for gender equality and empowerment of women. I have to tell her story. In actual fact, I hosted a lunch, as every year I do, with Secretary General and 7 Under Secretary General ladies and 5 men Under Secretary General. And I talked about my mother as a hero because she stood with me while I was struggling, while I was in prison, even when I left Iraq and lived in exile. She was always supporting me. She never complained. She never said a word. When Saddam regime executed members of my family, she was forced with my sister, whose husband was executed, to take the bodies to be buried. No single male was allowed to join the bodies, just in case it could be turned into a demonstration against the government. And then she was forced to be on TV 3 times as a threat to me. And it's not a joke to face Saddam regime dictatorship, because he killed complete families, used chemical weapons to kill thousands of people. And at one stage I was worried. The most important thing for me in my life was my mother. I was worried she could be killed as the other 8 members of my family. When I went back to Iraq in 2003, I have another brother who was kidnapped, tortured for 3 months, and was killed in 2005. And for 3 months, I was visiting her every day. She was crying every day, but never complaining. This is a hero of my life. She's a woman. I think women could inspire the whole world because every one of us come from a mother, and without mothers, we couldn't live. Thank you very much.
In the Middle East, where we come from, 21st of March, which is tomorrow, is Mother Day. It's suitable for it to fit right after International Day of Happiness. So thank you for also getting that to do today. Our next speaker is former Under-Secretary General Honorable Karim Chaudhry, who is well known for his relentless efforts in support of the culture of peace. Today, he has agreed to share his thoughts on how to connect happiness with the inner transformation of individuals. Ambassador Chaudhry, you have...
Thank you very much, Maher, for this introduction. And I'm delighted that I'm coming to speak after Peter, who quoted Rabindranath, and I'm delighted for that. And also Ambassador Al-Bayati, with whom I worked very closely as the resolution was progressing during the 66th session. This is the first ever observance and celebration of the International Day of Happiness by the United Nations, and I believe that it will continue to expand in its celebration, in its outreach, in its inclusion of all people of the world, so that people find United Nations leading in this eternal quest for happiness and peace. And I believe it will be wonderful to engage, and I'm very delighted to see many young people here today. So, as Ambassador Al-Bayati mentioned about many women joining us, but it is also very important that young people join us, not only this year, but in subsequent years. The UN resolution, thank you, Judy. UN resolution mentioned that pursuit of happiness is a fundamental human goal. And I think, and happiness, last evening, there was a celebration and a launch of a book by Sri Chinmoy called The Jewels of Happiness. And there, one of his quotation is, peace is the embodiment of abiding happiness. And peace and happiness go hand in hand. So the objective, the overarching objective of the United Nations and the objective of happiness come together very nicely. So this is an occasion which needs to be enhanced further in our work. And I encourage civil society to think of doing something which fills the whole day with celebration on this day next year. I will share with you some practical thoughts which I believe is important and connected to happiness. If we desire, look for happiness, we should prepare ourselves for happiness. And I think that is very important. And what do I say? This is a kind of, as I said, this is you need a particular mindset to prepare for it. And I have identified few elements in today's world which are necessary to make you feel that way. Firstly, Ambassador Wangchuk mentioned about Gandhi's quotation about the greed and the need. I think the worst enemy of happiness is greed. And you need to ask yourself, what are you greeding for is really going to bring you happiness? This materialistic pursuit has taken away happiness from all of us. There is no end to materialistic pursuits. The second point I believe is very important, which is building a sense of spirituality in yourself. That this universe is a much bigger thing than just individuals, ourselves. And that is very important. That will make you feel how small, how insignificant each one of us are. It is. And that is very important. If you put yourself in a bigger context, that will make you stronger. The third thing, and this is very important in today's world, you need to understand and have respect for diversity and respect for global solidarity. We are one world. I cannot be happy with millions or even my next neighbor remaining unhappy, because we are so interconnected, day in and day out. We need to understand that. And then the world is so diverse. Accept that, respect that, and that will make you happy. You know, respecting somebody is such a delight, such a joy. So remember that. The next thing, the fourth thing for me is also we have to understand this intergenerational connectivity. Intergenerational connectedness is extremely important. Older generation, the newer, younger people need to connect and transmit whatever is good in the past or the present to the future. That is extremely important, and we should know that. Finally, share whatever happiness you have. Sharing will increase your happiness. Share with next person, another person, anywhere. And today, in this day and age of interconnectedness, internet opportunities, you can share with the rest of the world, with anybody you want. Do that, and that will bring happiness. I think these essential things are my humble thoughts which I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Chowdhury. I think on the idea of sharing, we usually have panels of 3 and 5 people, but you can see we have a larger panel because everyone shares something about happiness. Our next speaker is Dr. Judy Kuriansky of Columbia University Teachers College and is well known for her academic work on clinical psychology.
Well, thank you so much. I'm already happy. Just look around at this amazing group that has assembled here. Take a look at these incredible colleagues from UN and academia and friends. So thank you all for being here. And we are so lucky, and I'm so inspired by everything that's been said by the ambassadors and our director of DPI Outreach and also the Undersecretary General of Communications and Public Information. This is amazing that we're all here to share this very historical day. It's the beginning of something that we've all talked about. I'm here, as was said, wearing 5 hats as an educator, as a psychologist, also as a representative of NGOs here at the United Nations, and a representative of civil society who was part of the April meeting, the high-level meeting that was about happiness and well-being as a measure of development that we had here at the UN. So I'd like to make 5 points. First of all, why is happiness and well-being important? Well, it's important on 5 different levels, on so many levels. The happier you are, the healthier your immune system is. The happier you are, the better your relationships, the more resilient you could be after disaster, any kind of trauma, the longer you live. And the more cohesive is going to be your community, and the easier it will be to resolve any kind of conflicts, including on your personal level and internationally. So what is happiness? There are lots of phrases from positive psychology, and you might talk about satisfaction, about quality of life, about resilience, and many other things. But whatever the definition, one thing is really clear: well-being and happiness is universal, but it's also culture-specific. If I'm going to say to someone in a Western culture, are you happy? They'll understand that word. But if I'm in China, as I often am, I have to say, do you have harmony in your life? So culture is important. We've heard that education is very key. It was pointed out by the Undersecretary General that this is an initiative of the United Nations Secretary General, many NGOs here. It's a Millennium Development Goal. And research and experience also shows it is really important, I found this myself, to teach children early about happiness and well-being. I've done workshops all over the world after earthquakes and the tsunami in Japan and Haiti and in China and just recently in Tanzania. And it shows that children and all of us can relate to happiness. We can do it here right now with very simple techniques. I ask the kids to just turn, you can do it now, to someone and smile. Just turn it to anybody and smile, and you'll see it is impossible, I see it now, for the people not to smile back. A simple technique that works. Another one that I do with kids and all over the world in workshops is that I show them this ball. And on it is written, my dream is, it's in all kinds of languages here, including Swahili, where I just was, and China and Tibetan, as a matter of fact. So I throw it to a child, this is a youth, sorry, and a wonderful one's going to speak, to one of the kids, and then they announce what their dream is, and then they throw it to another child. And the kids all feel so much better, even though they're in such horrible situations and conditions, and they feel uplifted and acknowledged by the group. And so, just as an interesting thing, one young man in Japan said, I want to be president, very nice, and a girl said, I want to have a happy family. Isn't that a gender difference? The guy wants power, the girl wants a happy family. Okay. So research in humanitarian work psychology, a very burgeoning field, showed that the more satisfied workers are, the more efficiently they work. And the more successful is the organization. And my favorite research project about that, that's been a little contested in the results, but I love it now, is that the management wanted people to work more effectively. So they turned the lights up, and the people worked harder. And then they turned the lights down, and what do you think happened? The people worked harder. So what did they conclude? They concluded that if the management shows that they cared about the workers, they felt better and they worked harder. So I love that study. Is wealth worth more than well-being? That's a question that you just heard the ambassador address and other people in the panel have said, well, I'm sure we'd all love to be rich, but the Beatles were right when they sang, remember, money can't buy you love. And research supports that. In one study, for example, women who were making less than $20,000 a year spent more time having fun than women who were earning 5 times that amount. And I've done this also in my own studies very, very extensively. I ask people on a scale of 0 to 100, how important is money and love to you? And the majority of people say love is important. But, you know, gender comes in there too, because sometimes the men say money is more important. And on a happiness walk, when I walked with some women, I met them up in Maryland, and they were walking from Vermont to the state of Washington, asking people what makes you happy. And a lot of people along the way said to me, what makes them happy? Their family and seeing their children's eyes at holidays and Christmas getting gifts. And a couple of men once again said, money. So gender aside, what really matters to a lot of people are those other things, fulfillment, relationships, all the things Ambassador Chowdhury talked about. So my last point is, can happiness be measured? We asked about that, and actually the ambassador mentioned something about, yes, there's been research, psychological research in prose that shows it can be measured. There are many scales of things like quality of life and satisfaction. Even the World Health Organization in the Well-Being Index has used 5 questions. I'll ask you just a few of them. Have you felt cheerful? I hope so. Did you wake up feeling fresh? Maybe some people were tired. Is your daily life filled with things that interest you? I hope so. On the international development front, the Happy Planet Index, which Costa Rica won last year, as a matter of fact, measures well-being and sustainability. You remember, this is the topic of our discussion today, including your ecological footprint. So, well-being should be included in the UN Sustainable Development Goals, I'm sure you all would agree, as we move forward from the 2015 Millennium Development Goals. So finally, what are you going to do to increase well-being for yourself, your family, and your community, and this world? I know that my colleague here, Joanne Murphy, is going to address a lot of these points. The Ambassador Chowdhury already gave some of those. I'll give a couple of suggestions and then I'll finish. First, take action. Talk about the issue. As a psychologist, I would say talking certainly is important. Ask yourself and other people what makes you happy, what makes them happy right after this event. Tweet about it right now. I won't be hurt if you're on your little phone as long as you're tweeting about this. In your classrooms, in your companies, on social media sites. Devise your own projects and connect with others. You can go to, we have a new website, and this is really exciting because on there is lots of projects, right? I know you were part of it. Margot Lazar was very part of creating this for all of us. We appreciate that. It's at www, you don't need that anymore, internationalhappinessandwellbeingday.org. So that's a really cool place to go. Advocate with your governments. China and Japan and Brazil and Great Britain are really doing efforts about this. Even states here, Maryland, Vermont, Washington State, go to your representatives and advocate about including well-being in their governmental measures of GDP. So the coalition we have here, the coalition, the Psychology Coalition at the UN, we advocate a lot of times about this, and you can find a lot of information on the handout that I have in the back, all of us do, and our statement. So approach these panelists too afterwards about what all we're doing. Latoya's going to discuss all the interesting projects she has. There are many NGO people here. Where's Sharon Hamilton Guest is doing a lot of work about happiness and spirituality. So I thank you all. Yeah, we're right time. Good. And I look forward to more of these, and happiness to you. Bless.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Latoya Turns. She's a student at the UK's Durham University. She's the creator of the Broken Happy Record, an online TV show now under production. Latoya, tell us briefly about your project.
Excellencies, Mr. Chairman, honored speakers, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Latoya Burns, and I'm 22 years old from Bombay, India, and I study at the Durham Global Security Institute. I'm here to tell you about how us youth can get involved in the happiness and well-being movement. I owe an immense intellectual debt, and that is heart, to the people of Bhutan, without whom we wouldn't have as much an understanding of happiness and well-being in the context of development as we do, especially His Excellency the Prime Minister of Bhutan and Dashopal Jorjigni Dorji and family. I'd also like to thank Margot Lazaro for facilitating this process for us. In August 2011, I was awarded a research grant by the University of Warwick's Lord Roots Memorial Fund to study cross-national happiness as a mandate of state and method of statecraft in the Kingdom of Bhutan for a month and a half, which incidentally was my best. What I found there was that human happiness and well-being counts, not only in people's everyday priorities and the way that they evaluate success, but also at every level of governance, and it's integrated beautifully and systematically into their policy process. So in Bhutan, we realized that the protection and promotion of open, global, dynamic cultures, the preservation of the environment and ecological sustainability, fair and equitable socioeconomic growth, as well as good governance, was essential to make for an environment where youth and people were free to pursue their happiness as they saw fit in their myriad and diverse ways. So I'd like to encourage the youth of the world to seek opportunities to study well-being in their own countries and everywhere else, and all these issues. Now, the Happiness and Wellbeing Initiative holds youth participation as very, very important. To that effect, I was also part of the high-level meeting in April 2011. And as part of the Scholars and Economists group, as well as the planning group, and later the International Day of Happiness Communications Subcommittee, we realized that including youth in this movement in a way that gave them ownership was very, very important. And so I was tasked with the immense pleasure of creating the Broken Happy Record, which is an online interactive TV show that seeks to use broadcasting as a way to connect youth from all over the world and bring them together on panels like this, consisting of youth, academics, policymakers and practitioners, and discussing effective, imaginative, and transformative ways of making well-being and happiness a core interest and a core consideration in development policy. And we realized that through the lenses of well-being and happiness, as pioneered by this movement and many others, we could take important world issues, for instance, the core causes behind extremism and violence, or other issues like the need to evaluate the sustainability of welfare states, or even the empowerment of women. And we can bring these issues and analyze them through the lenses of well-being that I've mentioned before, and use all these innovative benchmarks in order to highlight key areas where policymakers and NGOs and everybody else can focus on, so that we can make the world consciously a better place by mainstreaming these considerations. And so the idea of the Broken Happy Record was born. Now, our first episode is going to be in June of 2013, and we'd like to encourage everybody to be part of it, whether you're a youth or not, but especially the youth, in the production of the show, and as well as feeding into the show via, the internet or being there live. And to this end, if you'd like to know more, please email me at l.m.ferns@durham.ac.uk. Also, we made a video with the UNDPI's NGO Relations Youth Orientation Program, so my colleagues Charlie Lowenthal and Sean Hammer, we have colleagues from all over the world, well, many places, and we're expanding. We made a video to encourage youth to take part, and I'm very, very pleased to note that the response has been phenomenal. So let's make for a world that joins together to make for gross global happiness, which is the preserve of all, and that everybody can work towards being happy in their various ways in a sustainable way, so as not to challenge the parameters that sustain us on this earth. And to that effect, I welcome you to join us, the youth, at the Broken Happy Record.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Dr. Joanne Murphy, Director of Programs with Intergovernmental and Non-Governmental Organizations at Fairleigh Dickinson University. A member of the UN Academic Impact, will discuss what we individually and collectively can do to achieve happiness and well-being. Joanne.
Thank you, Connor. Before the timekeeper starts, we're going to hear from the audience. My focus right now is what is your action plan? And every one of us here, we want to know from you, what do you plan to do, so we can get started a little bit before we get fully into the discussion. I want you to remember that the UN Charter starts out with, we the people. So the responsibility is in your hands. I'd like to have one person from this side, one person from the middle, and one from the far side to answer one of the questions. You have a handout from Fairleigh Dickinson University, and there are questions for consideration and discussion. What can you do on your own? What can you do with a few friends? What can you do with an organization or an NGO? How can you motivate others to work in harmony with you and countless others to raise awareness and take concrete action? So we'll start over here.
I am Ozio Wong. I represent New Future Foundation, as well as a company called Burn Bright Light Folks Incorporated. Last year, we did a similar experiment called the International Day for Dreamers. And it was an experience that brought the world together through achievement and aspiration. And what I find fascinating, I also teach at Columbia University, what I find fascinating is that when it comes to happiness, the gap that we see between someone having an aspiration and them being able to achieve it speaks a lot to whether or not they're happy. And to the extent that they can actually modify that relationship with the aspiration and the achievement and the way in which it becomes social and how people can kind of get to that place together is very important. So when you ask what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do is to get people to have the courage to declare their dreams with conviction and also to support each other in the process of manifesting these goals and dreams. And so that's our contribution. Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Dr. Thomas Colleen from Mercy College with 4 of my students from the Envisage Environmental Sustainability and Justice Club. And what we're doing with a few friends and our small organization is we're working at the university level and around the world to show that toilet wastes and kitchen wastes can be, instead of sources of pollution and shame and disease, can actually be sources of happiness. That every home having toilet and kitchen wastes can generate enough energy to meet basic needs, can generate fertilizer to grow the basic food they need, and that this makes this microcosm of the home scale something that we can now scientifically show has the potential to liberate people from many of the immiseration vectors that are causing such unhappiness.
Hello. Hi, I'm Mario Chamorro. I'm from Make It Happy. Well, besides that, I have like this challenge to tell you this story in 2 minutes, so I have to start really fast. I'm from Colombia, and how happiness changed my life is basically one day I was reading this book and had 2 questions that changed my life. The first one was, what is your gift? And the second one, what are you doing with your gift to make the world a better place? So suddenly I started a website that went viral, and I started a project called Happy Post, where we took the same question as many of you have been doing, which is to ask people what makes them happy. In less than a year, this movement grew into 30 countries, and we have people going to the streets asking people what makes them happy, to write or to draw anything that makes them happy and post it. And this movement grew into create social innovation. What we learned from here was that happiness was creating social change. And from here, we landed this into this organization called Make It Happy. And from Make It Happy, what we're doing is to create chapters. As of today, as we speak today, we have 10 cities doing simultaneous acts of kindness, from art installations in Munich to development of apps in Pasto, Colombia, that are joining to celebrate the celebration of the International Day of Happiness. Finally, just wanted to leave you with 3 words. Make it happy. It's a mantra. Make it happy. And from here, we are developing all this grassroots movement and several initiatives. Hopefully we can talk to you later.
Very good, very good. Thank you so very much. This has been excellent. I really don't think there's a need for me to go on. What do you think? Now the timekeeper can start. It is really a great pleasure as a representative of Fair Dickinson University and a member of the UN Academic Impact to be able to share with you today what we do. We take very seriously those 3 words in the UN Charter, we the people. To us, that means that we cannot rely and should not rely solely on governments to make the UN a success. We, the people, have a tremendous responsibility in whatever way that we can be responsible. And I will share with you an idea or 2 about that. But Fair Dickinson University has 4 campuses, 1 in Roxton, England, 1 in Vancouver, British Columbia, and 2 in New Jersey. We function, the 4 campuses, as a single non-governmental organization. What are we doing to commemorate the concept of the International Day of Happiness? How are we bringing this to life? On every single campus, we are all working together, each one to bring awareness into the communities where we exist. In Vancouver, they're hosting an entire day involving faculty, staff, and students with all kinds of presentations and cultural events to raise awareness in the entire area where the campus is located. In Roxton, they're hosting a soccer game. You know that the Brits like their soccer. And so we're using... we're using soccer, football, to inspire and to motivate and to develop awareness around the idea of happiness and raising funds to help a charitable organization that addresses poverty in developing countries. In New Jersey, we have both of our campuses working together. We're going to have a big evening event tomorrow evening. A film is going to be shown, Happy, a documentary, to raise awareness. We have 8 different student organizations working together. Ladies and gentlemen, this raises awareness. And this is what is so critical for the success of the International Day of Happiness, people being aware of the true meaning. The true meaning is not ha ha ha. The true meaning is understanding that a country's real success is based upon the well-being, the deeper well-being of its population. Is the population being fed? Are they being housed? Do they have access to excellent health care? Do they have access to education for their children? Are they living in peace? When your neighbors are being killed and you live in fear constantly, there can be no well-being. So peace is critical. And this is what we're working on, expanding the understanding of the International Day of Happiness, and this is how we support the agenda of the United Nations. I would like to talk to you about frontier science and how this relates to what we're talking about today. Achieving the goals of the International Day of Happiness by changing the game plan. I think we can learn from the work of brilliant people who are conducting research in the realm of frontier science. And I know this is not what you expected from me today. Nikola Tesla, a brilliant scientist we all know about, once stated, the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. And this I firmly believe. A few weeks ago, I met at Princeton University with Dr. Roger Nelson, who is the director of the Global Consciousness Project. It was one of the most enlightening and inspiring experiences, very stimulating. I truly smiled when Dr. Nelson said to me that science has now come full circle to converge the knowledge and to converge with the knowledge and understanding of the sages and elders from ancient cultures throughout our world. That is powerful, very powerful. Now, due to the shortness of time, I'm only going to share with you a few excerpts from the Global Consciousness website. I'm planting seeds here. I'm nudging you to move out of your space of comfort and to think really creatively like our young people do. On the website, it says that coherent consciousness creates order in the world. Subtle interactions link us with each other and the earth. When human consciousness becomes coherent and synchronized, the behavior of random systems may change. Quantum event-based random number generators produce completely unpredictable sequences of zeros and ones. Now, I know this sounds rather complicated, but I'm going to simplify it. When a great event happens in our world and it synchronizes the feelings of millions of people, the Princeton Research Network of random number generators becomes subtly structured. It is no longer random. The probability is less than 1 in a billion that the effect is due to chance. The evidence suggests an emerging noosphere, or the unifying field of consciousness described by sages in all cultures. The bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, we are all one. And Ambassador Chowdhury has mentioned that. Everyone on this platform has mentioned that in one way or another. We are all one. And so that means that our consciousness works together. If we feed into the global consciousness thoughts of fear, of anger, of hatred, well, that's what we're going to get back. That's what comes back to us. If we feed into the consciousness thoughts of peace, joy, love, happiness, we are establishing a foundation for peace, love, and happiness to prevail over the negativity that previously was fed into the global consciousness. I am sharing this with you because we encourage you, go forth, use your time, even if it's 1 minute per day or a couple of seconds as you're waiting in traffic. Focus those thoughts on positive and powerful thoughts. Dream about a beautiful world, because that is what we're here for. I'm going to conclude now. As you can imagine, I have about 30 more minutes of information to share with you. But I'm going to conclude now because I want to stay friends with Mama. I am concluding by reminding you of the words of John Lennon's timeless song. And I promise you I won't sing it. Imagine all the people living life in peace. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say, I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. And Louis Armstrong takes that a step further in What a Wonderful World. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, "How do you do?" They're really saying, "I love you." I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Thank you. And we get to the next point of the program. Before I do so, I would like to acknowledge that there are several members of the UN Academic Impact who are with us today, including Dr. Shinichi Yamazaki and Mr. Junya Ogasawara from JF Oberlin University of Japan, who have traveled all the way from Japan to today's event, so that's probably the longest distance. Thank you. At this stage, we'd like to open the floor for questions and comments, and given that we only have a few minutes, I ask those who would take the floor to keep the remarks under 2 minutes. I have several people already on the list that have registered with my colleagues. So first I would like to call from Christina Stevens, an award-winning filmmaker who frequently lectures on Bhutan's vision and practice of happiness and well-being. Christina?
Yes, hi. I first learned about happiness when I went to Bhutan on my many trips there. I learned about it from not only the royal family, but also my 4 little adopted daughters who teach me every day. I've recently returned from Myanmar, where I'm actually bringing gross national happiness into that land in a most unusual way, because every country has its own unique challenges, and I would love to get some assistance on this. I'm working with a large group there, the government, corporations, and we're actually considering making next March 20th National Cleanup Day. Now that may sound odd and bizarre, but in fact their natural resources are so exquisite, but their human resources, they've been so fragmented over the years and centuries, decades anyway, that this is something that is going to be very, very subtle, but it will bring everyone together and suddenly begin to create a network of caring and loving and working with each other from the top down. So that's just one thing I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next I would like to invite Elizabeth Hostenhoff, a DPI staff member, who actually went out and asked hundreds of people the meaning of happiness as they understood it. Elizabeth, please tell us about your project and what you learned in the process of unity.
Thank you, Maher. From January through December 2010, I interviewed 365 people about happiness. I asked them what made them happy, what were the happiest moments in their lives, about their definition of happiness, what they did when they were feeling blue and wanted to be happy again, and of course if they were happy. I did my interviews on 3 continents, on land, in the air, and on the water. The main reasons for people's happiness were interactions and connections with family and friends, knowing that they were happy and well, being healthy, creative, exercising, peace and harmony, their faith and religious practice, appreciating small things in life, and helping others. I particularly remember a cold and rainy day when I interviewed Mary Ann, homeless lady who was huddling in the doorway of the church. Despite her difficult situation, she was the happiest when she could make other people happy and put a smile on their face. Out of all my interviews, only 5 people mentioned money and material possessions. And strangely enough, a person's employment was only mentioned if there was a challenge that had been overcome and they felt that their work had positive impact. And also, which was very strange, when I asked the people if they were happy, only about 5 people said they were unhappy. 2010 was one of the happiest years of my life. These interviews gave me tremendous pleasure, and I also felt and was told that these interviews gave the interviewees a lot of pleasure also, and it was contagious. They would interview their family members, etc., etc. My advice is that the more we try to make others happy, the happier we will be too. Happiness is a choice and it is attainable for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please don't tell me that the ones who mentioned money were all men. Finally, from the list that I have, I would like to invite Dr. Annie Kalayan, Fellow of the New York Academy of Medicine. Annie is? No? I guess she gave her name and then. Thank you. Then the floor is open for comments or questions. Richard.
Thank you, Maher, and to all of the panelists, thank you very much. Just a reminder that tomorrow, the first snapshot of the synthesis of the 11 thematic clusters on the Sustainable Development Goals will be presented at UNICEF House at 11 a.m., and it would be very valuable, I think, for as many of us as possible to go to that briefing and understand where we might be able to still impact for the inclusion of happiness and well-being in the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Any comments or questions to the members of the panel? Please.
Hello. I'm Gabrielle Courage. I represent Forum for World Cultures. Thank you very much for all your ideas. I used to be a journalist where, of course, I used to write a lot about the problems of the world. And then with my foundation, I started to still work with different cultures, but concentrate on the positive things of each culture and try to bring them together in terms of what they have in common. So I remember at university as an anthropologist, they used to teach us concentrate on the differences, but I do think, especially culturally, the difference lies in the cultures, but if we concentrate on the common sense, that makes a lot of sense. I recently work a lot with Mayan Indians, and there are two main concepts, of course, are, for one, the connection to the Creator, for second, the community, the connection to the community. For many reasons, I don't want to abuse of time right now, but for many reasons, I would suggest to invite the Mayan principal maybe next year on this day of this event. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
First of all, thank you. United Nations organized very important event. Happiness is for everyone. And Ambassador Bhutan, for your leadership and all team who support this one. My name is Dr. Naima Chaplin. I am a president of International Federation Collaboration, and I am executive committee member at UN Foundation, UNAUSA Council of Organization. My question is for panelists, how you can consider effective communication to create happiness from personal level to national and international. And where is this connection? Everyone wants to be happy. Where is this connection? What is your opinion? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see if any members of the panel would like to take that question and maybe comment on the other points. Please.
Thank you for that question. Communication is essential in order to make for well-being and happiness. Like we've heard from the panelists, you can never be happy in isolation, and we're all interconnected. But let us remember that we live in a world with parameters that are wide enough for everybody's flourishing, but also delicate enough that we need communication. And so, at every level, be it in the family, in the society, or the community, be it youth, we need to form alliances of communication and of caring, and use the various means that we do have, like multimedia, like broadcasting, like talking to someone on the phone and communicating very simple ideas. And we need to come together to communicate, and this communication is very important because everybody has a very different notion of what happiness means for themselves, and yet everybody has a vision of the collective good. We need to communicate in order to make for a harmonious pursuit of happiness and well-being.
Yes, I'll just add, Norma, thank you. The website, everybody's using the internet, thank you, Latoya's using communication. Go to happinessandwellbeingday.org. That's the place for everybody to give their input. There are things posted there for all kinds of organizations. We have a global happiness and well-being group that you could join, and there are so many resources. So go there, all the NGOs, all the civil society, everybody is inputting onto that website. Thank you.
I would like for us to remember that nonverbal communication is equally as important. And this is where I wanted to draw your attention. Communicating within yourself outwards, where you can reach billions, using the power of this amazing capacity that we as humans have. We are each a miracle. Use that nonverbal communication to change the world, while at the same time we are using social media and all the rest.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been wonderful this morning. So many intelligent questions have been asked. And I know that happiness can be achieved, well-being can be achieved. And I would like to provide a short answer to all the questions that have been raised now. I think if we are to achieve happiness, a sustainable happiness, a sustainable well-being, our efforts should be directed to serving humanity at all levels, personal level, group level, foundations, government. Yes, government is very important. It is good to have, it is crucial to have leadership. We all need excellent leadership. Leadership that does not misuse power. Leadership that is not selfish. Leadership that is not, there's no ego, arrogance, intolerance. Leadership that is truly inspiring. And we are responsible to select our own leadership, own leaders. So we need to focus a lot on education. Education from all the schools, childhood, college, high school, college level. So therefore our educational institutions are very, very important. How we nurture our children. Because I think that is probably the only way that we can achieve happiness, the lasting happiness. That the happiness being the ultimate goal of every human being, whether we realize it or not. But we seem to pursue happiness, we seem to take wrong path. We think that getting rich is going to give us happiness. We think that gaining power is going to bring us happiness. That is what's happening where there are conflicts. You look at the areas, the places where there are conflicts. If you look at the leaders, do you think they're inspiring? Their people are dying, they're killing their people. That is not called leadership. That is called power-hungry people. So it is our responsibility to select, group our leaders. Thank you.
Well, thank you again. Let me say the following, since we're talking about communication and internet. The whole world should be educated that we are one big family. If we read the holy books, the Torah, the Bible, the Quran, all say that God created us from one man and one woman. Luckily now we are living in a small village. Imagine 50 years ago or 100 years ago, for the last thousands of years when people want to communicate with each other or to travel to visit each other, how long it took them. So luckily we are living in a small village, and that will help us to achieve happiness and to achieve so many things. When I wrote a letter to Secretary General, I summarized that all the objectives of the UN, every objective, whether it's eradication of poverty or diseases, millennium development, all of them could be summarized with one word, which is happiness. Because you cannot be happy without education, you cannot be happy without health, you cannot be happy without a family, you cannot be happy without a job, etc., etc. So this is why I'm going to read you this, which is really one of the philosophers wrote, my ultimate goal is for the whole world to work together in peace and oneness and to have real and truly happiness. That's the ultimate objective we should have. And this is why you see in all these holy books, they say you should love each other. Because you are one big family, you are brothers and sisters. We are not allowed to hate any other people. And this is another quotation, love is the secret key that allows a human being to open the door of God. Truth is in all, but love is all. You follow your heart's love, your life happiness will follow you. To serve and never be tired is love. Thank you very much.
Just very quickly, two observations, two very personal observations. One is with reference to the lady who teaches at Columbia University, who spoke about what can we do to help people to get closer to fulfilling their aspirations. Something I've learned by living in India and South Asia for 8 years. I was always someone who wanted to be the first up a mountain, and then I enjoyed the view once I was up there, but I forgot about the path on the way up. And what I learned in South Asia was, as you work towards realizing your aspirations, you should enjoy the moments that take you there. And the second thought was, I only joined the United Nations about 6 months ago, and I was wondering till today why, as you walk into this building, it's different to most of the other institutions worldwide. And today I learned, at least that's my conclusion, the entire team of the UN, day and night, around the world, tries to make that small difference in the world of other people, particularly those in need. And from what we've heard today, that seems to be the root for happiness. So that's why it's a happier place than the others. Thank you so much.
Obviously, that 1 hour is not enough for a conversation on this subject, and I took the occasion of asking the panelists to answer the last question and maybe give their final comments. We're really out of time at the moment. Maybe afterwards you can talk to the panelists.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Happiness is an individual pursuit, but must also include social, economic, and environmental elements. Together, they can form what the Secretary General has called the gross global happiness. I hope that today's meeting here during the lunch hour has given you enough food for thought about happiness, and I'm sure that this conversation will continue. And just one more thought to think about. We talk about happiness, development, human rights, peace, and security. This week, the UN started the Arms Trade Treaty talks at a time when we hear that budgets are being cut, economies are suffering, global military spending is $1.73 trillion, and it doesn't show any signs of coming down. Is that the way to happiness? Wealth doesn't create happiness. Certainly arms do not either. So thank you.
What makes you happy? My good dear friends make me happy.
Helping people, sharing time with my loved ones makes me happy.
Being with people I love, champagne, pizza, big hugs, good friends.
Really good food from around the world and spring days.
Kindness.
Kindness.
I think when people are kind to one another,
Thank you.
I'm interviewing women all around the world on their adventures, love, life, women in refugee camps, women in New York, and it makes me really happy to get to spend an hour and a half really like intimate with these women to find out what their souls are all about.
These shoes, meeting people while walking around, that's what makes me happy.
You know, there's magic in happiness, because what else can you give away and get more in return?
We are very happy that the day went off very well, and there was the kind of response that we have received from the international community was something that we feel so satisfied and so proud about.
This initiative by Bhutan is really important because I think that this understanding of happiness on that kind of a balance between material life and spiritualism is very important.
And I remember fondly when we were in the General Assembly Hall, absolutely everybody had a smile on its face, because usually, you know, we vote and we adopt resolutions dealing with peace and security, development, but adopting a resolution on happiness was quite something new and beautiful, so it made us happy.
The idea of gross national happiness, which was put forward by His Majesty quite some time back, captures the essence of what humankind wants, i.e. development that is people-centric and which leads to better life for people. This is the kind of concept that has to go forward, and they will succeed.
Your lips so warm and sweet as wine. Your eyes, I love to see them shine. Your cheeks so soft and close to mine. How my heart is swaying while this band is playing, 'cause I'm never tired of romping. It's stomping with you at the Savoy of joy. A perfect holiday. Sad boy will dance the night away. Sad boy will